Hi folks. I somehow didn't feel in the mood for a micro concert tonight. It's probably best not to force it. The news is that the government has finally shut Britain down in the sense of forcing everyone into isolation. In my opinion, long overdue. I hope there's no backlash from people saying it's overreaction or something, because the time for all that is well past. And I just wish that the government had had the courage 3 weeks ago to take this action, because it was obvious to any of us who had any mathematical intuition or understanding 3 weeks ago that this is where we were going to be at this point. We had the models in front of us. We had China, we had Italy to look at. It was obvious. And unfortunately, in delaying so long before the actual measure was brought in, it's going to cost a lot of lives. A lot. Still, it is the right thing to do now. So please, everybody, don't argue with Boris. It's time to isolate. And I kind of wish I'd been more vocal, really. A few days ago, I said, it doesn't matter to the virus who you are, how old you are, how infirm you are still a carrier of the virus. And we sailed into this catastrophe very poorly equipped. We had a health service which had been crippled by 10 years of austerity and cuts, sadly understaffed and under-equipped. We then had the first days when the virus was discovered in Britain, and Boris, you can't really blame Boris. He had the most appallingly bad advice from his scientific advisors, saying what we should do is delay. We don't want to do anything too soon. You remember this? And, we have to look for herd immunity. And tell you what, let's just tell people to wash their hands. Now that has cost us dearly, and to their eternal shame, these people then gradually changed and said, actually their next idea was almost as bad. It was like, let's just tell the old folks to isolate and everybody else can carry on as normal. Appallingly bad device, appallingly woolly thinking, because it didn't matter if you were old or infirm or whatever, you were still a carrier. At that point, everybody should have isolated. This virus can only propagate when two humans interact. It jumps from one to the other, and that's how it increases itself. That's how it spreads. If on this day, as we speak now, if there were no more human physical interactions in Britain, the spread would stop. The virus would not be able to find another host. It would be stopped in its tracks. Not immediately, because it takes 14 days for all the infections to be discovered. So 14 days later, we would see no more new infections. Now, we're not going to see any results from today when things are finally shut down for another 14 days. So this is why Boris has said we will reevaluate in a week's time. In 3 weeks' time, which is a week later than the 2 weeks. So in 3 weeks, we might see a leveling off of this curve, which would be fantastic news. I personally think the news that the number of new infections discovered in Italy has now leveled for a couple of days. I'm crossing fingers. I hope that that's a real statistic. And that would be wonderful news for us all, because it means there is a limit in sight. And if we're 3 weeks behind Italy, then we would perhaps see that flattening off at the same point, 3 weeks' time. In the meantime, it's going to be bloody. But please, people, please do as the government has asked. Don't try to be clever. Don't even see members of your family that you don't live with. It's hard. I find it very hard not to be able to see my children. But I made this decision almost as soon as I got back from the tour. I've been in voluntary self-isolation, as a lot of people that I know have been, for about 3 weeks now, I suppose. And anybody who had any sense was heading in that direction. I have one more thing to say. Are you not shocked that even at this point, there are people coming to this country, getting off planes and not being tested, not going into quarantine. Don't you find that incredible? That would have been necessary at the very beginning, in my opinion. That was what I would have done first, because it's like trying to fill up a bucket that's got holes in the bottom. We cannot eradicate the disease while there's still stuff coming in. It's an open system. It has to be a closed system. That's what Singapore decided very early on. Singapore, an island like we are, shut down all its ports immediately. And Singapore is doing very, very well now. My God, if we'd only had that advice from the scientific advisors early on, we'd be in much better shape now. There is hope. This can work. We have to take it to the extreme. Isolate. Spray anything that comes into your house with disinfectant. Don't be tempted to get close to people. You have to regard everybody as if they had the disease, and they have to regard it as you having the disease. You have to just imagine that it's all around us now, because it is. I want us all to be surviving. I want us all to be optimistic. And there is reason to be optimistic. We're all learning new skills. The planet is probably benefiting in many, many ways from the fact that this virus has happened. Apart from people dying, most of the effects of the virus are seen to be good. So it's a very strange situation to observe. The virus has chosen, if you can, this is maybe fanciful thinking, but the virus has chosen only to threaten one species on the planet, the species which has caused the most damage to the planet, which has destroyed the environment, just destroyed habitat, destroyed most of its fellow creatures or enslaved them. So, it's putting us in check, and there is much to learn from this. We're already seeing pollution disappearing from countries that are shut down. Okay, I've babbled on enough, so forgive me, but I had to kind of give vent. And I'll play you some more guitar very soon. God bless you all.